So Here's What Happened is a proud member of the Why Though podcast community. Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our Black Panther discussion on So Here's What Happened. I'm your host, LaNeysha, and I'm joined once again by these lovely ladies, my co-host,
Carolyn. Hi, everyone.
And our beautiful editor-in-chief and my best friend, Kate.
Oh, yeah. I was like, did I say my name? How did
You say your name,
Hi,
but it's
I'm
fine.
Kate. I'm Kate, who needs
Yes.
cues on things.
Yes, it's fine. It's fine. You waved on the podcast, but
okay, there was a reaction.
Yes, there was a reaction, so you did the part.
Listeners
But yeah,
just can't see it.
it's fine. It's fine. If they listen to the previous episode, then they already know that we were planning on doing this part 2, and you agreed on the recording to come back, so they should have already known. But yeah, so if y'all, for some reason, skipped the previous episode where we talked about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, you can go back and listen to that again, where we go into the synopsis and film discussion. But through our very in-depth discussion in our previous episode, there definitely seemed to be room for more discussion to be had, specifically around some things with the characters and the issues we had, and some things we just needed a chance to go to. So we decided to do a part 2. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we just want to go ahead and kick that off. And we're going to go right back into talking about the characters, specifically Kate's favorite. We can kick that off with
Namor,
your man.
Or yes. Namor. I'm never going to call him Namor. I'm not. Like, I didn't grow up with that. I'm sorry, Thanos. I'm so sorry, sir.
It just rolls off the tongue when he says it, though.
It does. It does.
Would you say El Niño Namor?
Yeah. I did want to like make a note of like how they did choose to adapt the name. I thought it was smart. Smart. It's like Niño sin amor, child without love, which is really interesting when you think about his character arc, and like we talked about in part 1, the grief of all of this. And I think that adapting an existing character is always hard, especially when they have such a long history. Like he was one of the I believe Namor was one of the first like superhero types that Marvel had as a Submariner. So when you kind of think about that, I think that the name change really showcased a thoughtful adaptation. Because one of the things that I don't like is when you take a character and you change who they are, but you don't recognize how those changes impact the world around them and impact their storylines. And I think that what they did here was they were like, okay, we're not just like coming in and making him Mexican or indigenous Mexican. We're coming in and changing the lore itself to represent who this new character is. And I think when you do that, you're giving the actor who's stepping into that role the runway to not be in something shadow in a really effective light. So that, like, when you think about like as a character, I think the adaptation of him was very, very well done and well thought out.
Yeah, I think it was smart of Brian and Joe to make him to not only retcon where he came from, but also setting it in an indigenous community, giving him an indigenous Mexican identity and casting an indigenous actor. It makes sense to me in a technical aspect because they're tying the story directly to Wakanda first. It makes sense to have these two countries. Are you okay? You almost gonna fall out the chair.
Sorry, my like headphones like did this like weird screechy thing, and I didn't know what was happening for a second.
Okay,
I'm so sorry.
No, it makes sense because of how Ryan built up Wakanda. He gave us the beginning of Wakanda, and he's done one of the best origin stories in the entire MCU and in also all of the superhero comic book film genres. He did the best with Black Panther, and he did the same thing with Wakanda Forever by building up Namor and Talokan, and starting from the ground up. It's a great introduction for people who are new to the character of Namor, and like but they still know about Mayan. Like we grew up like knowing about Mayan pyramids and those and like places like in like Bolivia and stuff like, and those are Aztecs, but but people have a foundation idea of like Chichen Itza and those kind of places. So like if you give them something similar, they're like, okay, I can draw a reference for this. Whereas the thing with a lot of the other MCU films, they rely on you knowing the comic book backstory for all of these other characters. For all of those films, you have to have some kind of comic book knowledge to be able to understand where these stories are going. And Rain is like, no, I'm gonna kind of take that away so that anyone can watch these films and know that they're learning about these characters along with the people who know about the comic book history. Because the comic book bros, he threw that away completely, as you were saying, and like they have to learn along now with new audiences, which I think is a smart way to go. And it kind of does build up, because he's talking about colonization and colonialism and imperialism. This is also giving both Wakanda and Talokan a similar history, so that when they do form that allyship at the end, they have that commonality, and that's where they can both build their allyship on. Especially coming from like having a tumultuous introduction to both countries because they went to war, but like they can say, okay, we went to war, but we both have the same foundation of wanting to protect our people from colonization. Exactly. It's a point of commonality, and it was a smart thing. It was a very, very smart thing to do. And it's also just like Brian is saying, we got to put more brown skin people and more people, melanated people in the MCU because they ain't enough.
Right. And I will agree. Like, I like that it's not something that's, how should I put it? We talk about how things can be adapted from comics and you can tell an original story. And that's probably like one of my favorite things about Namor and his people is just like, you can have a vision for how like you have the character, like how it's based in the comics and like they have a history. But then I like that he took he had the liberty and his team, like, you know what, we can do something different. Because it would have been very easy to just put anybody in that role. But instead he decided to like, you know what, there's an opportunity to use the Yucatan language. There's an opportunity to use mind culture. And there's an opportunity to do that and to do it respectfully. I'm not saying it's perfect because like I would not know if it's perfect because I am not an anthropologist nor am I an expert, but I could tell that like, you know what, they made very deliberate choices. Like, I don't know if I got a chance to say this, but like we did talk about it because Kate, you mentioned like just being able to see brown skin on display and be celebrated for beauty. And like, it's not hidden behind a green mask and they're not aliens. Like, I love the decision for them to be blue on the surface because it's about how they changed and they're no longer a part of the surface world. But now you see them in like as themselves underwater.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point that both of y'all make. And I think too, like when we look at adapting, like I'm always hesitant when I do see adaptations done because I think that you have to be conscious of what you're changing. Mm-hmm. And so when the trailers came out and when we learned of that they were gonna like Atlantis was no more, it was Talokan, I was like, okay, if you're gonna throw everything out, why didn't you just throw out the blue too? Like you could like, and so that's where my brain went because I was like, okay, now you're doing, is only one Indigenous man okay here? And that's where my brain went because that's what we've gotten for so long. Mm-hmm. But seeing that like not only did they adapt a new I don't want to say like submerged culture, but they were like, no, every piece of it. So even the skin color ends up like that has a very purposeful meaning. These people had to change everything about who they were. Mm-hmm. I think for the most part, it's near perfect. It's almost perfect. I have a couple of issues. Like Talokan is Aztec. Like that word exists. Talokan is the word for paradise from the Aztec codices. Mm-hmm. And Aztec and Maya both came from the Olmec and Toltec, but they were very different. Maya were very connected to the sea, so it makes sense that this is ultimately where we went. And the other thing that I didn't like was that they anglicized Talokan. So Talokan is Tlalocan. And they took out the TL, and I'm like, you could have just made them say it. Like you could have just made them say it.
Right.
It's the same way, just spelled differently in Romanization. But you know what?
It bothers me because like those little things, like we may change it to be understood by somebody else, but you have the choice as a writer and a director to say, no, we will make you learn how to say this. And that's what bothers me, because there's a power in that, right? It's a reason why I make people put the accent mark on the A, because I know that it's fine to do my last name without it, but it means something to me to have that there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it
you're
bothers.
Okay, so then any other final thoughts on Namor?
I think the one thing that I want to take this moment to tell people, Tenoch Huerta has been in so many things already, and you can watch a lot of them. So Son of Monarchs, he's the lead actor in it. It's a really beautiful film. He plays a biologist. That is on HBO. Tigers Are Not Afraid. He plays the villain, an actual villain in that one. That's on Shudder. He is in Madres, which is a really amazing horror film on Prime Video that is look through it's folkloric horror to look at the way that Latinas and specifically Mexican women were sterilized in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. And then he's also in the Forever Purge, which sounds dumb because it's like Purge number 11, but it's if you're from Texas, like that actually does a good job of kind of like synthesizing what it's like to be a brown Mexican in Texas and like the type of racism and pushing that happens both for like immigrant communities, but like US born Latinos too. So I knew
he was familiar. I was like, I watched him in something and I'm not gonna rest until okay.
And he's in Narcos Mexico, but I don't watch narco films. So I can't attest to it being good or bad.
The Flight of the Monarchs, that was a Sundance film because that screened for Sundance and South by Southwest. And Tigers Are Not Afraid was another festival film too. So I know about the two of those from festival coverage. But yeah, he's a fantastic actor. Like honestly, he is Brian Coogler and his casting director. I'm gonna pull her because she is amazing. The Oscars really do need to create a category for casting directors.
You're not wrong.
Art in and of itself. And his casting, I want to know who he did his chemistry test with, because his scene, so Sarah Finn, she worked with Ryan on Black Panther, and she's also worked with him, I think, on the Creed films as well. So that's another thing with Ryan. Like once he has people that he knows that he can work with, he sticks with them and they work with him really well. Yeah. And this casting for Tenoch is genius, not only because he's indigenous, but his chemistry with Angela Bassett,
just about anybody on the other end, that man works miracles with them.
How can you like
his scenes with Angela, the one on the beach? I call
where he does like the Daniel Kaluuya lean into her face.
Comes up to her to the side. I was like, God damn! I'm supposed to hate you in this moment, but I want you two to kiss. I'm like, kiss her.
The tension. I was mistaken. I'm mistaking this like tension of war for other types of tension. Because you got two very amazing actors just.
He's talking about, I will kill your daughter. And I'm like, you're saying this, but I'm seeing something. I'm like, my ears and my eyes are telling me two different messages. I'm like, now kiss. Yes.
I was like, I'm totally fine with that man punching me in the chest right now. I don't care. Like,
and Baku got to feel that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh no, he got to feel that from the other one.
Down. He got that one punch and he was like, you know what? I see where this man is coming from. And he stayed on the ground. Yeah. But his scenes with Angela,
and that is a hard task. Like that is like to not lose yourself acting against somebody so powerful like Angela Bassett. Like that is a testament to how much the camera loves his face. Yes. Like he was doing the same thing that like the same mannerisms that she was like emoting with her face. He was not just saying a line, he was emoting the line. And like that is a high bar to clear. And like maybe like Denai also held her own, but like I can't name anybody else in that movie that like didn't get completely swallowed up by her.
The two of them together in a scene. That's why I'm pissed that they killed her off. Because imagine the scenes that we could have had with them as rulers together.
Can we get into that real quick? Because I do have Ramonda's death on here specifically.
Okay, this is a perfect segue into Ramonda and her Angela Bassett.
We can talk about them because
I'm just gonna say it. Ramonda did not have to die.
None at all.
At all. And my biggest thing is there's just so many flaws with the decision to kill her. I just don't feel like it was Ryan's choice. I feel like this was a Marvel decision to move the story forward for Shuri.
I think that they sacrificed her so that Winston Duke can do something in the next movie. That's what I think they did. Because like, I love Winston, but...
Okay, wait. So before we move on just a bit, like a friend showed me an article today. I didn't get a chance to read it, but it's in Sci-Fi. Let me pull it up. And so it's Angela Bassett was saying apparently she initially objected to her of course.
Like
to Ramonda getting killed off. But apparently, I didn't read it, but my friend was saying that apparently Ryan, it was partly Ryan's fault. But I don't really know if that's true.
I don't believe it. I
can't believe that.
I refuse.
That would be too much of a betrayal to me.
That feels like an MCU story decision. I'm gonna leave it at that.
I think it's a whole decision too, because we know they don't like it when you have more than one person of color ruling at the same time. Because it would have been two Black women. It would have been Ramonda and Shuri. And then when you consider the amount of people of color in the show, if you had Tenoch as another leader, then you have Kang as another leader, then you have another leader.
Well, my only pushback on that is that I think that they did it specifically to create a pathway for Winston Duke to do more as M'Baku, because when it ends, Shuri is the Black Panther, but M'Baku's here to be leader of Wakanda now.
Yeah.
And they pushed it back towards, so now we have to have a king again?
Right. We just got a queen. We were about to have two queens. Shuri would have eventually taken up the throne if that's what she wanted. But at the same time, and this is my whole thing. First off, if the goal was you wanted to remove Ramonda from the throne, she is tired. Once Shuri becomes the Black Panther, she would probably just step down, take a step back, go live with your daughter-in-law.
Because Ramonda's been Queen Regent before, right? Like she's ruled in Wakanda while her kids were getting ready. Yep, she already has been doing that.
I can't picture Shuri being at the UN giving these same.
But see, Shuri never wanted, and I know this is like me going off of like what we know of Shuri, but like Shuri has never said she wants the responsibility of a ruler.
Never.
Oh yeah, and she finishes this movie not wanting it too.
Without even wanting it. So if the goal was to remove like T'Chaka's family, they don't have a last name as far as we know, but like, if the goal was to remove that family from the seat of Wakanda's throne, you could have just had Ramonda retire, Shuri still be the Black Panther. Ramonda could be like a counsel to the next leader, which now we know is going to be M'Baku. And the other thing is like,
I'm not gonna lie.
The
only way I would have accepted her death was if she took the heart shaper first, became the Black Panther for like a hot minute, and then got killed in battle, and then Shuri came up. That was the only way I would have been okay.
There's so many more meaningful ways that she could have died. Yeah, there's so many more meaningful ways that she could have died, and like that's kind of my point, because like, what sense? Because like she's the former Dora Milaje. She's a former general. What sense would it make to put the ruler of Wakanda in the object of desire that the enemy is coming for in the same room, unguarded, no weapons, and you're very visible? None of that scene makes sense. Because like, why would she, as a general with all this tactical knowledge?
She even tells her to run. It's like, you couldn't have told her like when it started.
My whole thing is like, why tell her to run and stay? Run with her.
Run with her, because you had nothing.
Take her hand and drag her up. That had me so. I was literally in the cinema, and I'm like, she better not die. And then it was like, this is some bullshit. And the other people that were in the first person was a press screening, and everybody went like, what?
That felt so lazy. It just felt like a lazy way to kill her off. Because I'm just like, you could, what would have been better?
Writing.
She steps in and she stops Shuri from killing somebody because she doesn't want Shuri to be a killer.
Don't just have her be the construct. Have her actually like they're telling her not to be a killer.
Exactly. That part. Like that would have been more impactful. Yeah, or like but no, none of that scene makes sense logically.
It's also really hard too because our scene right before that is extremely powerful. Like when Namor comes in and hits the glass, she doesn't flinch
At all.
That type of fearless, like, and I know that was their moment to have their game of chicken a little bit.
Yeah.
But and that was a great scene, but like, how are you going to take that and then immediately like go to her being face down?
And then they make it, and they try to, they're trying to make it amazing and benevolent because she died saving Riri. But I'm like, she died, like Nisha and I were talking afterwards, we were saying she didn't even have to die. If you want to have her temporarily out of it to get
Princess Leia
anger,
put her in a stasis chamber.
A coma.
She could have been in a coma. She could have been in a coma. And therefore, that's also another way for Shuri to still be angry, but not lose another family member. Because that's another thing for me in the film. Because what this does is it continues to traumatize these Black characters. Because Okoye, now she wasn't able to say goodbye to Ramonda. So the last time she sees Ramonda is Ramonda like turning her down and being angry at her, and that hurts because they had a close relationship. And so that you got Shuri in more pain. She's lost all of her, and it pisses me off because early in the film you have Ramonda say, "Everything has been taken from me. My family is gone." And then you turn around and have that be Shuri too, where literally all of her family is gone again. I'm like, to me was just continuing to traumatize these Black characters for no reason. They could have had her be injured and be in a coma and have the exact same story. She did not get to be killed off at all.
Yeah.
It could have even given her, which I guess probably goes into like the accepting the things you can't change, like grief element, but they could have had her craft the heart-shaped herb to save her mom.
Exactly. And it would have,
because then she gets exactly.
And it would have been a call back to the beginning when she wasn't able to save T'Challa, but now this time with the new tech and the new knowledge she has from Talokan, she uses it to save her mother.
Also, how in the world can the suit save a whole hole through your your stomach?
That part.
But you can't bring somebody back from drowning?
Because I'm thinking it's like because Riri didn't drown. Riri was underwater longer than she was because she died
and unconscious underwater longer. She was knocked out. She had to have inhaled more water than Ramonda did. And I agree, Kate, because I'm thinking I'm just thinking you can heal a spine. You can heal a fractured spine in a man. You can heal a man's brain mentally after being brainwashed for years to the point where he is back to his normal self. But we can't restart the body with the beads.
Get her to cough up a little water.
Just to get the water out her body and just like jumpstart the heart.
They didn't even try to do proper CPR. They just put I'm like, someone go do some proper
beads on her and they were
done. Breathing through her mouth and bring the water out. Like I'm like, why have to good old fashioned CPR? Mouth to mouth resuscitation never fails.
The technology has been their hubris. That's
the thing, right? And that's where to me the writing for this, one of the things with this film,
lazy.
It was lazy, it was insulting, it feels like a betrayal, and it feels like a lot of just because reasons. Like the MCU, I will say that I will plant my flag on a hill about this. I can see Kevin Feige's hand in this decision because they did it with all of the other female characters.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. It was one of those where like I haven't been mad at every female character death because like I felt that okay, I can see where it's going, but as it started ticking up and ticking up and ticking up and ticking up, and now this, I'm like, you know what? No, it's all bad. Throw it all out. I can't do this anymore. I can't.
Right.
How is what happened to Ramonda any different to what happened to Natasha? What happened any different to what happened with Gamora? And what's her name? Mantis almost died saving Tony's backside the exact same way. Yeah. It's the same thing that happened to Thor's mother.
Which I think is like the other thing that like we should probably point out too is like if you're gonna do a news like Black Panther in general, like it like Coogler's storytelling has been very focused on like not necessarily using all the same tropes that every superhero has and having his heroes investigate them in a different way. And we saw that with T'Challa in the first one and how he handled the burden of power, how you deal with somebody having a complex idea that actually makes you question your own morality and your own like stances. But then with Shuri, it's like, okay, no. So you know how all the other heroes have somebody die to traumatize them and make them more of a hero? We're going to do the same thing again here. And it's like, why? You don't have to. Like, her brother dying should be enough to get her on the path.
We were already in the grief.
Or even having to deal with the fact that
I'm going to burn the whole world. And Namor was like, I'll burn it with you.
Also, did she, like, were you not angry that he just, like, flooded Wakanda? Like, were you not angry that he just killed? Because we know he killed people. Because he even says, Barry, you're dead. I know I killed him. Like,
yeah.
That, like,
there's a lot.
She had so many things to drive her to be angry. You didn't have to throw this into the pile.
It was like Frigid, but adjacent. Because it's not a love interest, but it's the love for her mother. I don't
exactly
what they did.
It's still using love. Yeah, you're right. It's still using love to propel somebody by killing off a character that had no reason to be killed off.
At all. And it actually did ruin the film for me because I was so sad, but the longer I sat there in that film, because we still had the entire third act to get through after that. I was pissed and angry the entire time the third act of the film rolled around. I was like, because I was in my head telling me, this is some bullshit, because like, how dare you kill off Angela Bassett? How dare you? Because she has never been killed off in any show, any film. And I'm like, how dare you? I was
the audacity.
The principle, the audacity.
You know where my brain went? I was like, Ryan Murphy hasn't even killed off Angela Bassett.
He wouldn't dare.
Why are you killing her off here? Like, that's where my brain went. I was like,
it's a mess. And it's just, that was like my biggest thing. Like, I did not like it. It doesn't make sense. Logically, story-wise, none of it makes sense. No matter I would love to hear the reasoning, but like, as we already just deeply lined out, they did it to make Shuri angrier and grieve more and to send her on this dark path that she was clearly already on. So on that note, let's get into Shuri. Oh, did you have one more thing?
Well, no, like to that point too, like as we move into Shuri, like with everything that we've said, if Ramonda doesn't die, you can still have the closing scene. Because she's never processed T'Challa. She never processed T'Challa until that end. Like that end was for her mom, but it was also for him.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can leave everything else intact and keep her still alive.
Yeah. It's pretty, And honestly, I kind of mentally want to just block out that moment because you
but
can.
I will say, to his credit, I'm not mad at Namor because he said he was going to come in and do exactly this.
He did. He said he
did. You know what's funny? I'm not mad at Namor either. It's really just like, I'm mad at this writing because I'm like, it's really, it feels weird. I'm beyond being mad at Namor for killing Ramonda because he definitely killed Ramonda.
I mean, I'm mad at this writing. She does by drawing to save Riri. I feel like the writing is what killed her because, like, you know what?
The writing is what killed her.
Because when he hits the staff on the window and she doesn't flinch, she impressed him so much in that moment.
Yes, there was like a mutual respect. There was a respect.
That was like, he was like, okay, you know what? You badass lady. I can't touch you. And he would have gone flitter on his way and continue doing what he's doing. And that would have been enough. They didn't need to kill her. And I just, the more, like, as I'm telling you, the more I think about this one part of the film, the more problems it has, because to me, it also affects the rest of the MCU.
It does.
It does.
I bet you they're not going to give that the respect that it deserves. Because like they're only going to be talking about how Shuri being the Black Panther changes the MCU. I'm like, no. If anything, Ramonda's death changes the entire MCU going forward. But they're not going to want to acknowledge that because it's a Black woman who would actually be the what's the word I'm looking for? She's the wrench in the entire phase 5 because it's going into the fifth phase, right? Yeah.
Well, like when you think about it too, like Ramonda, and as we like move into Shuri, like. Ramonda was holding together international relations. Like,
can you picture Shuri at the UN?
No.
Can you picture her going into a room like that, like the beginning, and telling all those people where to jump off? Honestly, I don't buy LaNeysha, delivering those kind of scenes. I don't see her as a leader. I don't see her as a Black Panther because even when she was doing those scenes, like the scene where she was fighting Namor in the hovercraft. when she was like, and she was like angry. I think I legit said out loud, I'm like, I don't buy this. I don't buy this coming from you.
I will, and adding on to that, I will say that's the one thing that is kind of like disappointing with LaNeysha Wright's performance. And I will say she works well with it depends on who's on the other end she's delivering the lines to. Like, I loved all the scenes with Shuri and Namor and Shuri and Ramonda, but it's like, even Shuri and M'Baku were good. But then it's like in certain scenes, she could not carry the scene as the lead. Yeah. And her being Black Panther feels so temporary now, how we know how it ends. It really feels like she's just holding this position because she feels a responsibility for it. But at the same time, girl, most of your time as Black Panther, you made some bad decisions.
My friend, I was talking with her because she went with all of her stores that were in Austin, and they were so excited, and they went in and they were excited for Shuri, and they left. And she told me, she was like, it felt like LaNeysha was there for a check. Like, it felt like she was there because she had to be. And I that kind of like hit for me. And then like I don't like Shuri because I don't think the smartest person in the MCU should be an anti-vaxxer. I don't think they should make transphobic tweets. And so like that, and I tried to put it, like I tried to bury it, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go in. I'm gonna see if she can like change this for me. She's just not, like, she's not dynamic as an actress. Like, she really does, like you said, Nisha, she relies on that other person to carry the scene and contribute small pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see her being fierce. I can't see her being intimidating. Even when she's yelling with M'Baku and she's like, I want to burn him. And I was like, I don't buy it.
You sound like a brat, and you're bringing everybody else into you're projecting your grief onto everyone. And now you're making it everyone's problem, and you're seeking out revenge for the wrong reasons. And then it's also like, I agree. 'Cause like, I remember seeing her in Black Mirror, and her performance in Black Mirror like stunned me. I was so impressed. And like a part of that is like she did really well acting without that moment when like the dude was like immobilized and she's just monologuing. I'm like, perfect. She did a wonderful job. And this is like now at this point, 4 years ago from that? Yeah. And it's like she hasn't really evolved much as an actress. I think to the point where I think a lot of us would love to see her. But like, I think she has the potential to get there, but also, I agree. Cause like, I could not, like, as I'm watching her be like the lead scientist of Wakanda, in my brain, I'm just like, girl, I can't forget that you made transphobic tweets, and you like, I do try to separate the actor from like from the character.
Be real good but for me to be able to say.
I couldn't because I just kept on remembering the anti-vaccine tweets, and I'm just like, dang.
I tried. Okay, so like I had the same issue. So when I was going into the film, before the film started, I sat down and I had to tell myself, I had to remind myself, I had to say, separate LaNeysha from Shuri. Separate LaNeysha from Shuri. I had to physically and consciously, and I don't normally have to do that. I've had to do it a couple times, but particularly in this instance, I did have to really try like to consciously tell myself, this is not LaNeysha I'm watching. This is Shuri.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that for most of the film, but it's just, to me, her best scenes are the scenes with Dominique as Riri, like those college scenes.
Yeah.
Because that suits her vibe. She fits in as a college student, she fits in as a scientist. She works really, like you're saying, Nisha, like, it's true, and I agree, because she's one of those performers that they really, their performances are elevated based on if they have a stronger performer as a co-star, as a scene partner,
or just someone they can feed off of with one another.
Exactly.
That's what she and Riri do.
If the vibe works, and if the vibe feels natural, so the college scenes with Dominique and
that's really
those scenes were really good because those scenes are lighter and they're humorous, and she has really good.
Or even with Okoye in those moments where it's like that quick back and forth, Cecily, like. Yeah, you're complete.
Like she has really good comedic timing, so she works well in those scenes, and she worked really well in the dramatic moments with Tenoch and in Talokan. Like I really liked how like those scenes were serious and somber, but they were still very a little bit. It was about teaching, so he's teaching her. So you can that's to me, that's like I can see how he was building up her character, how she looked in those scenes. Like, you can tell she's listening and she's been an active scene partner. So I really like those scenes. But the scenes where she's like Black Panther, or where she's being antagonistic or trying to tell, like, I don't buy her bossing around M'Baku. Come on. Like,
No.
and then like her, the whole vengeance thing just played like a child throwing a tantrum, because you're sending all of these Wakandans to war. You're making M'Baku bring his Jabari soldiers to war because your mother died. Okay, and you want vengeance. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
It stopped being about protecting Wakanda. And like, because because M'Baku, and I'm not like segueing into him yet, but like, because we'll get to him, but like, but M'Baku being the voice of reason and saying, what do you think will happen if we kill their god? And Shuri just not caring and not listening to that part, because that should have been the moment that it clicked for Shuri. That should have been the moment. And that's why I say, like, one of the negatives for me again was like, it felt like it was dragging, because that by that conversation, by that third act, I was hoping to see a switch for Shuri, or at least
common
partially.
sense. It's just like common sense was nowhere there around. And she's not thinking like a leader.
No,
not thinking like a leader at all. And this is where like people all be like, and this is where a lot of people, I'm not going to go back into the comparison between Killmonger and Namor, but this is what people didn't understand about Killmonger and T'Challa, and even Okoye, and what Okoye was trying to say is they were thinking of like the collateral damage. And it's something, and I think Ryan does understand that, because when he has Killmonger be the person that appears to Shuri, he's showing that she's not thinking logically, she's not thinking of consequences, she's not thinking of collateral damage. She's going from a place of anger and a place of self-centered anger. And so she's thinking that only she's the only person that's grieving. She's not thinking that an entire country of people is grieving. She's not thinking that all of these other leaders in all the elders, that they're grieving too. That M'Baku is missing his friend. His friend is gone. She's not thinking about
the fact that M'Baku, like right before that, he says like, there is no more room for people. Like, I've opened up Jabari land, but we can't keep pulling people over here. That's how devastated this city is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
right. And like I'm wondering sometimes when I watch films like this, and you look at writers, sometimes I always wonder, do writers realize what they're actually telling us in the stories? And this film, I really don't think they understood that what they're telegraphing to the audience is that Shuri really isn't a leader. They're trying to tell us that she is, but I'm like, you're right. The subtext in your writing, in reading between the lines that you guys have crafted, you're actually showing us that she isn't a good leader, and actually make this is crafting this story was an insurmountable task because of the loss of Chadwick. Take that outside. Take that out. What they're telling me with this is like, she was never a good option to be a fill-in.
And I think it's just like, because she literally takes it on as a responsibility. At that point, she takes it on because she feels like that is her duty. But then it's like, that's why I say, like, it doesn't feel like Shuri's going to be the Black Panther for long, which sucks, because I love Shuri as a character in the comics. I love Shuri like from the first Black Panther film, and I still like her, but I can't help but see how the writing just didn't do that character justice. Like, remove LaNeysha's a performance aside, just talking about Shuri the character. I wanted more from her, like rising up to the occasion, but it really just feels like
maturity. She didn't grow as a character. At the very ending, she did not mature.
That's what I was gonna say. Like the entire thing, we get her grief arc, but nowhere did you tell me that she had a maturation throughout this whole thing. No. She may not be the little girl who scoffs at tradition, but she's still the little girl.
Yeah.
And that came through. And actually, like Misha, like you said, responsibility. I saw her taking up the Black Panther as a burden. I didn't see her as carrying duty or like anything else. It really felt like they were telling me that she sees this as a burden. There is something to be said with how heroes handle responsibility and the burden that comes with it, but they don't see it like that initially. And so her walking into it as this thing that has to be done versus something that like,
and it's only done for her own personal goals. She didn't take up the match. She didn't take the hardship herb to become the Black Panther because she wanted to become a protector. She did it because she wanted the strength from it to go up against Namor.
Yes.
And that's such an extremely selfish thing to do. And that's where I'm saying sometimes I don't even know that even if Ryan himself, like when they step back and when they watch the film, if they realize exactly what they telegraph to the audience. Because I mean, the more I think about it, like
even with that ending, because like that ending feels so open-ended because okay, if she's living with Nakia, does that mean she's not going to be the Black Panther? Is she going to be the Black Panther?
Did she go there to live, or did she just go there as a place to grieve?
Right. We don't know. It's open. It's so open-ended. So it kind of feels like if Shuri is to be the Black Panther right now, which like we know in the comics, it's a temporary thing anyways. I would really like to see the writing for her as a character mature and to show that like it's no longer just a burden, that she takes it on and she takes it on seriously. But like eventually we know she'll pass it on.
Yeah, she didn't even go to the challenge, which is the traditional way to do it. And
I mean, I feel like the problem is there's just no time to go through the challenge, but it's also
like, and the other thing with Nakia, like you're talking about her being in Haiti, that's another thing in the film that had me confused, because Nakia is telling her, if you need some place to go and live, you're always welcome here. I'm like, so what? You mean that you're gonna leave Wakanda unprotected with a monarch?
You just showed up to give them their Black Panther, and now you're like, peace. I'm gonna go to an island.
I'm going back to my school.
Even Nakia making that offer to her just doesn't make sense. I'm like, why would you even make that offer in the first place?
Because we never got the conversation that we probably should have had of Shuri at least telling Ramonda or somebody, I don't want the throne. I don't want this responsibility. But then we also have the conversation of Shuri realizing I have to take on this responsibility, not for my vengeance, but for my people.
Well, even like afterwards, we could have gotten like 5 minutes of her talking to M'Baku and saying, hey, you're going to show up because I do not want to fulfill this.
Exactly.
I cannot fulfill this. I realized that I am not a good leader right now. I need you to step up and be the leader, because
I would have preferred that, because there was time to do that. Take out all those stupid nonsense scenes with Ross and DeFontaine and use those scenes to develop Shuri as a character.
They did
that part of the story.
Yeah. All Ross and Elaine, she's Elaine. I don't care that she's DeFontaine. She's Elaine.
She is Elaine.
All Ross and Elaine.
Be glad that I can even remember that she's DeFontaine, because she annoys the hell out of me. Every time I saw that character,
I'm so tired of her.
Yeah, so with Ross and Elaine, to your point, like all that does, like those feel extremely shoehorned in because they need to connect it to something else. And I'm getting really tired of it.
I'm tired of it.
Like even so I know a lot of people don't like Eternals. I actually really liked Eternals, but I hated when they would just name drop Iron Man or I'm
back mentioning the Hulk.
Tired of it.
The thing. Yeah.
You don't need to. Just tell your story.
Because the thing that made the first Black Panther perfect was that it was just by itself.
And I think
they were contained. And I can understand that, like, now since y'all opened the walls, you have to mention some of this stuff. But I really feel like the whole Ross and Elaine stuff was too forced and shoehorned in. Where it's like, I get it. We're leading up to the Thunderbolts. You've mentioned this woman and showed her at least 3 other times in 3 other projects. I do not need to see her again. We get that the Thunderbolts are coming.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus deserves more than what that costume department did for Del Fontaine, and I feel like it's because it was an additive. I feel like they finished wrapping up the whole film. They got everything done because Ruth Carter does not do anything like below S tier. She is always
her costuming was probably the most lacking, which is like,
I'm convinced that Kevin Feige saw the script, saw the dailies, and told Ryan, "Oh wait, we need white people." And we need to remind people that this is the MCU, because honestly, the way how Ryan structures these films, they're very much their own self-contained stories. Yeah. We know they're the MCU, but we don't need to be constantly reminded to be their MCU. Exactly. Like Black Panther functions as a film in and of itself. It feels like its own self-contained story, almost like a whole completely universe apart from the MCU. And this film, if you take out those films with Ross and DeFontaine, they function exactly the same way. So I remember, like, we need some white people because we got too many black and brown people. So we're going to insert these people. I need to remind people, oh my God, it's the MCU. So we need to name drop random characters at the most random and ridiculous times. And I have these 2 white people doing things that the Wakandas can do. So don't tell me that the Kamoya beings were being able to be bugged by the freaking CIA.
Oh yeah, that doesn't make no sense at all.
How the hell? How?
How?
They couldn't even build a freaking vibranium detector, but they can bug vibranium. Like,
No, I'm convinced them just had to be some fake beads. That in my mind, I'm like, y'all don't know how to work Wakandan tech. You're liars. But I will say, I think the only white person that needed to be in this movie as much as he was Everett Ross. I could do away with DeFontaine, and that's only because, like, from the beginning, yes, because it's like the CI SEAL operatives thing. Like, okay, that makes sense to bring him in and talk about that. And then, like, he's basically covering the Wakanda. He's just trying to cover the Wakandans. But, like, I did not like how his whole thing was, like, questioning them. I'm like, you know good and damn well this isn't them. Because if it was them, you never would have known it was them.
Yeah. I would have been fine with him in it. One, I just love Martin Freeman. I think he's adorable. But to your point, Neysha, and to Carolyn's point, like, it could have been like small phone calls. It didn't have to be like 10-minute scenes.
It's a whole arc.
Like, why would they go to him? Like, why? First, okay, is like, why would I have your number? Exactly. Why would she have her number? Why would they go to him? Just call him from Wakanda on the way there. Call him from in the jet and say, yeah, we coming down. What intel you got first? And let me go ahead straight there to university. Because I'm like, that made no sense.
All you needed, you could have cut out everything else. Just leave the scene of finding him and getting Riri's info, and then that's it. You don't need anything else. Because that tells you that they have a connection in the CIA. That tells you that they have somebody that they're working with, and then you need absolutely nothing else. You don't need finding anything on the bridge. You don't need Elaine coming in with her weird ass like a blue streak in her hair. Like, you just have that one scene, and then dedicate the rest of that time to maybe developing Shuri as a leader and a character, or even telling us that she doesn't want to be. Yeah,
because the conversation with M'Baku could have been really quick. 5 minutes. I could write that part. 5 minutes at tops. And it just could have just been her on the ship. I just would have liked to have seen that. But
yeah, it was too much. And to Carolyn's point, it all took away from like scenes that needed more time, because this film was already long. But like once Ramonda died, and maybe it was because I was so angry that she died that like it impacted everything else. But that third scene, it drags.
Yep.
It doesn't know what it wants to do. And the dialogue like falls off of a cliff. Like, it is just not, it's not the same. It's not the movie that I was watching for the first 2 acts. And then, like, I'm sorry, even the battle just wasn't that good either. It just,
the most I got out of the battle that I really liked was seeing how the Jabari men supported the Dora Milaje.
That was really cool.
And I thought this is really nice. Like, look at Black women and Black men come together and support one another and like fight like together. Because like when you look at the juxtaposition from like the first film, like granted there were women on the Jabari tribe who were fighting alongside T'Challa, but it was like there was so much discourse in the first Black Panther where people were talking like, I don't like it because it talks about how Black men and women don't support one another. I'm like, I'm not going to go into that right now because that's just a stupid comp. That's not what it is. So like now we have this film where like that scene meant something to see them supporting one another in battle. And like, no one's looking down on each other at all. Like they're all fighting together. But okay, sorry. Back to, so any other characters, because we did kind of touch on M'Baku, Okoye, and we kind of touched on Okoye, because I did feel like her arc did not feel complete in this film.
It wasn't. What I do like is that we got to see her be more happy. Like she was joking, like the scenes with Riri when she was like, look at you fighting with your room heater. I like that we got to see that with her, and she had the moment with Nakia because they do have a close relationship. And we got to see like they introduced Aneka, which is played by Michaela Cole. So that's where we got to see her. We got to see Okoye again in a more relaxed environment and visiting the homes. So we see where the Dora Milaje live, and like we got to see that Aneka. She has a home with why am I always drawing a blank off her Sumba's character's name? And I love her too. What's her name?
Oh, let me see.
I've been drawing a blank. Every time I want to think about her, I keep drawing a blank. She is.
I also just loved Michaela Cole's makeup in this.
Ayo, right?
Yes.
So I love to see that we got to finally see where the Dora Milaje live. And also the thing with Okoye, I love those scenes with Atuma. Like I did not realize how big Alex was in interviews,
giant
he's on the
man.
chairs and he looks regular size. But when that scene went on the
Yeah.
bridge, I was like, my God, this man is massive. Like,
Yeah.
his thighs.
He a big boy.
He looked like a wrestler. But I love their fight scenes together because I love that
Mhm.
she's fighting with this person who can go toe to toe with her, and he even talks smack to her. He's like, "Oh, you are not worth fighting with. My sprint put this aside and just go at you." And I love those fight scenes, and I love that again on the ship where he's like, "Aha, my nemesis has returned." Like now
Yes.
I love that I love that there's that kind of dynamic in there with their characters. So that's
Mhm.
another thing that I am looking forward to see. Like, now that they're allies, I want to see what kind of dynamic and relationship they have, especially when it turns out she can speak Yucatan too. He's like, "Oh, you speak the ancestor stuff." She's like, "I can more than speak with this." So I want to see that relationship. So I love to see that we got to see Okoye with a man worthy of her. Like, her husband and
like
her first husband was not. So I'm like, if they want to put the two of them, if they want to put Okoye and the Tuma together, yes, I ship it and I ship it hard.
I like this. I like
Yep.
this.
Well, I was gonna say too, like that was the cool thing about their fights is there was that mutual respect there. Even on the bridge when they're first fighting and she loses her spear, instead of attacking her, he kicks it to her for her to keep fighting. And then, he does the "you're not worthy of my blade" thing, which makes sense because he was kicking her ass right then and there.
Yes.
But that chemistry is so quickly done and done through and this is the thing that I really think Okoye and like the rest of it is like, I love action films, and the MCU doesn't understand that you don't need words to build relationships and story. You can just use physical movement. Ryan Coogler does get that. We got it in the first one and we got it here really well. And I ship them now. I didn't think about that, but I ship them now.
I'm looking at the stunts to see who the stunt choreographer is. So supervising that's stunt rigging, because that's another thing that not only that him as a writer do, but the stunt team understands. So like the stunt team is the assistant fight coordinator and is Rustic Bodamov. And so like the fight choreographers and fight that's coordinators, that's what they understand. They understand how you can tell a story through a fight. And that fight said so much about Okoye too. And him, because she was desperate to protect both Riri and Shuri, because she has the two of them knocked out. And so she's back. So if you watch how the fight is structured, she has the two of them at her back at every turn.
Yep.
She doesn't let the Talokans get close to them. She pushes them back, and she keeps the two of them at her back, so she's protecting them and she pushes them back. And I love how that fight is structured on the bridge, because with Namora, he says, "Okay, I got this. You're gonna handle the cops over there and let Namora do her thing." And then the other man, he said, "Y'all go to Namora, offer her support. I'm gonna fight this one, and I can fight her all on my own." So like, I love that. So that's when the film, when it comes to the fight scenes, does not feel there. And in the fight with Namor and Shuri at the end, those fights are choreographed really well. The only fight that doesn't work for me in the film is the fight on the ship. And the reason it doesn't work is because the final shot is all of these Talokans climbing up this ship, and it's like they're climbing in super slow motion.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how did you guys not converge on top of the ship and take them out already? Huh?
I'm still like, it's the fact that just because Namor and Shuri show up together and Namor tells them to stop, and it's because Namor knows he needs Wakanda as an ally, because if it wasn't for him explaining that at the end, I'd be like, you actually could have won. You actually had them.
They should have won, because they shouldn't have even let anyone on the ship at that point.
Like, what did they do? Were they just standing there for 10 minutes? Like, hey, we're not going to do anything until we see who comes back on the plane. Like, why do you, like, there is no way a fierce warrior people would not have just eliminated the entire threat when you have that much of an advantage.
Because I'm like, y'all were barely hanging on. There was like maybe 15 of them left. 15.
I think that's why I didn't like the third act. Like my biggest issue with this film is that third act. And a lot of it is like, you have built up you have built up that Logan, you have built up Namor. And you could go out like that.
It felt like
I understand that she like on the ship side, like they were slow-mo. I don't know how you didn't just fight. Yeah. And then like on the Namor stuff, I understand that he was dehydrated, but like I don't understand how a man who literally flooded a city can get taken down that easily.
Right.
I'm gonna let it go because they gave me the final shot where he's like, we needed to do this to win them over. But
and another thing, we know that Namor can call water.
yes,
He can call water. He controls and manipulates water because we see it on the bridge, because that's how Okoye know they were under attack, because she saw the water flooding into the city. He controls water. I'm like, why is this man walking to the ocean when he can call the ocean to him?
Literally. And I'm like, is it like Frozone? Is it like when he's dehydrated?
There's water in the atmosphere.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's
just like there's no
matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think
H2O, hydrogen, 2, oxygen. There's water in the atmosphere around him. How is she drying his ass out once they get outside the ship? In the ship, I understand, but outside, the air is made up of hydrogen and oxygen.
But again, Shuri getting pierced through the stomach, she's able to beat him to it.
Right.
And like, again,
you know,
this third act
that's exactly how Killmonger died. How did Killmonger die and she didn't?
Yeah. But they had the same suit.
With the same suit.
And he had taken the heart-shaped herb.
Yep. So the writing in the third act is like, when you have built up this entire film, but then it's just like the writing for the characters, and then like these scenes in the third act, this is what really just like, I loved it still. However, I'm like, I can't let y'all go and keep doing this. This is like,
and I think that's like the other thing too, is like, I feel like if LaNeysha had acted better, like her acting was better as Shuri, and if Shuri had more of an impact and less of a little girl throwing a tantrum, I wouldn't have been sitting in my seat going, why is this little girl beating the heck out of him? Like, and that, like, if you had done that, my brain would have suspended disbelief and would have been, I was still always going to root for Talocan. Like, they were not wrong.
For Namor to kick her ass, honestly.
Exactly.
Like, she dies. Well,
yeah. Because like, there was no way I could not see her as a little girl. Like, everything they did to that moment, it didn't make me invested to the fight to want her to win. It didn't make me I
been in the cinema when people are like, oh no, when she got staked, I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, because at that point for me, it was really just like, yo, it's not that I don't, I kept waiting for Shuri to come to the realization. That was what I kept on waiting for. I just kept waiting for Shuri to come to her own realization of like this. And then when she finally does it, it just feels like, God damn, it took so long to get here.
Too goddamn long. That film is too long.
It took too long for her to get to that final realization of like, oh, it's about our people. And this is bigger than my pain. And this is bigger than my grief. And this is who I am.
And you know what the thing about that annoys me is that that's exactly what Namor was fighting for all along. But in that moment, she's set up as being the hero. Well, technically, because this is still a Black Panther film, so they needed it to be a Black Panther that right a whole moment. But I'm like, but this is exactly what Namor was talking about. Namor was like, we could have been allies from the beginning if your mama had just done what I had told her to do. If we had just had then again, the whole film wouldn't have happened. But you know.
Yeah, that I think the issue is just like Namor being unreasonable when it came to the scientists. I think it's like Namor's relentlessness and not being able to also see it from Shuri and Wakanda's perspectives. Like they did not want to give up one girl. And even then, Reaver even said like, I didn't make it with the intention of finding vibranium in the first place. Like the true villain here is the United States.
And that's the white people trying to really address.
It doesn't. It like Ryan Coogler did his best to probably just get that message across as much as he could. And that is the only reason why I will justify DeFontaine's some of her scenes. Because yes, please just blatantly say the US will do anything to get vibranium. And they don't care being diplomatic. They don't care about going about it the right way. They don't care about keeping it safe from other people. All they care about is power. And that's it. And that's what DeFontaine represents for me in this film. But it's definitely this whole, that is the one part. I'm like, granted, we needed the tension and the drama in the film, but it's like, yeah, when Shuri was in Talocan and she got through Namor and said like, let's make an agreement, let's come to a compromise, there would have been no third act. But But Namor not being relentless when it came to Riri was pretty much the reason why.
And I'll tell you why even him being relentless with Riri still doesn't make sense, because it was established from the beginning that he's someone who's willing to learn and to listen. We saw that with how he approached Ramonda and Shuri, that he is always open to not negotiation necessarily, but listening to the other side. I don't understand that why when Shuri and Riri got to Talokan, he didn't talk to Riri himself. Why was there not a scene with him talking to Riri, like, why did you create this machine? How did it end up under the water?
Wrong.
Yeah. Why did he not talk to Riri himself? Or even Namora? Why didn't Namora even speak to Riri?
No one talks to Riri. Riri felt like a pawn. Riri just felt like a pawn to get to Wakanda. That's what she was.
Scientist that he's been looking for, and he doesn't talk to her.
Well, that's the other thing too, because it's kind of like, okay, cool, you kill the little girl. She's already been working with the CIA.
But she wasn't. How do you know the tech?
Oh no, yeah, that's right. She sold the tech, but like, the tech was still stolen. You don't know how she made it. You don't know what goes into it. How do you know that the CIA wasn't like reverse engineering? Like there's so many fact finding things.
And he would do that. He seemed like someone who would do that. So it doesn't make sense that the man built a goddamn vibranium sun. He's a scientist. Scientists are curious. He would speak to her as a scientist and say, I don't like that you built this thing, but why did you build it? How did you build it? And how did it get into the CIA's hands? Right. Why was there not a scene with Shuri sitting down with Riri and Namor acting as an intermediary between the both of them? She would say, I will not let you harm this girl, but I will let you speak to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just gaps. I don't have to justify and say like I still enjoyed the movie, but like it's still an enjoyable movie. But like I also just can't ignore the gaps with like the writing for the characters and just like how things went with some of these character arcs. I hope they can be improved upon, because I mean Namor aside, I feel like Namor and M'Baku aside, I would say they don't need the work that I need the other characters to have the work put into their writing. Even Okoye is a pretty good job, but they just failed at her and like bringing her arc full circle. Yeah. There should have been a moment where like she's welcomed back into the Dora.
Yeah. So I think the reason that didn't happen is because I think the Ayo and Aneka stuff, I think all of that was a backdoor for the Wakanda TV show that they're doing. It doesn't justify it, because I'm very tired of people saying, well, there's going to be a TV show. I don't care if there's a TV show. I am here in this theater to watch this movie. Finish your story. But I think that was the particular decision between those three, because there are like, I think that there is a lot more that needed to go in, especially because Florence and Michaela are just, I wanted more of them because I love them with all my heart. But like, I think that was why it always felt like more, is because they wanted you to want more. So then you'd go watch their other TV show.
Of course.
Yeah,
I don't like, she didn't even tease it. They didn't even tease it well. That's the problem.
Yes. Yeah.
You got the forehead kiss at the end, sing my love. Which, listen, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh yes, we know they're together in the comics. We know like clearly they're lovers here and they live together here. But in that moment, I ain't gonna lie. All I could think was, I want this orange dress that Michaela's wearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, on that note, if we don't have any other characters to discuss,
we can go straight to costumes.
or deeper issues. Yeah, let's just get into the costumes. I want everything, but specifically all the Adidas clothes. Like Shuri's Adidas outfit, Okoye's Adidas outfit. I want that dress that she wore at Talokan. I don't know where I'm gonna wear it to, but I'm gonna look great in it.
You can wear it on the beach.
I can wear it on the beach or a dinner party.
I believe that Ruth Carter is a phenomenal mind, a talented woman, an amazing craftsman. But all I care about in this movie were the tiny green shorts. I loved them so much. They did so much work. And
did they? What kind of work did they do, Kate?
They accented natural abilities.
Yeah, abilities. Is that what they call them down there now?
It's Glutimus Maximus.
Yes.
Ruth and her team are amazing. The costume. So this is one of these films where for me, like you have to talk about the costume design as well as the set production together. Because her and Hanna Beachler perfectly matched the different environments to the costuming. Like the environments that Hanna Beachler and her production team produced matches perfectly to the costumes that Ruth and her team produced. Because like you got these two worlds, again, underwater and above ground. And you got the Mayan traditional wear, and like they're calling back to like the indigenous clothing, and as well as the indigenous clothing in Mexico, where when Nakia goes to speak to the ladies, we got to see that. And then you got like the traditional West African and Central African styles of Wakanda, as well as combined with the Afrofuturism. So they kind of did like 4 different sets of stylings in this film, and those 2 teams, the production and costume design, did such I think a phenomenal job. That's like my favorite production and costuming for the entire year. Like the costume, like I want the outfit that Okoye wore to go to speak to Aneka. Top with the crisscross.
Yes,
I want that. I want the red bodysuit that she wore with the blazer. That was such a look. Wearing that with the blazer was such a look. Like
it was.
Yes, and the dresses that the Dora Milaje wore to the conference.
Yeah.
Every one of those.
They have gold shoes that I would wear with those dresses, and I think they stepped their game up this year with Ramonda's gowns as well. The black and gold. That red one she wore in the throne room. What?
Yes. So regal. Every look of hers was regal. And then even Angela, like when she was out of the regal attire, like the clothes that she wore when she was like when she got to take off being the queen and just got to be just got to be Ramonda and then also be a mother to Shuri. I'm like, it just matched so well.
Yeah, very much auntie. She looked very much auntie and mama and West Indian mama in those scenes. And another thing, a very small detail, I don't think I've seen anyone mention it online or anything, but Ramonda's hair. So before T'Challa died, she has the locks and she cut her hair off after. That's such a small detail, but to me it's a very big detail for Black people, especially Black women.
Yeah,
like we cut our hair in moments of like significant points in our lives. And she did the big chop as like that's her outward sign of grief, of mourning. Like she has that, like the hair department, those wigs were laid, those edges were set, and I'm like, yes, I love it. Like every detail that they had these women on. And then, but one of my favorite things, like, I have to speak to Ruth Carter. I'm gonna reach out on Twitter if I have to, because Disney being shady with not giving interviews, giving them only to white people. But anywho. When it comes to the Talokans, when they're doing their reconnaissance, their outfits are very reminiscent of marine life. And I love that we got to see that in their battle wear. Their battle wear is like marine life. Like, and Namora, she wears this headpiece that is like the frills and the gills of a scorpion fish. And I love that. And I'm like, I love all of these small
That's a great point.
I love all of these small details.
What about you, Kate? Anything besides Namor shorts?
Besides the shorts, I mean, I loved so much of it. Particularly, I do not like pan-Latin, pan-indigenous stuff. Like, no, give me the culture that you are supposed to be representing. Like, I think it's lazy to make things that aren't specific to the culture you're representing when you are representing a very specific culture. And I think that the attention to detail in, and I'm really happy you brought it up, Carolyn, the Mayan village, like in like above the ground. Yeah, like those are things that like I have seen people wear. Like I have seen people's grandmothers wear those dresses. And like there was an attention to understanding that you were dedicating yourself to bringing a culture to life and showcasing what is there now, that I think was really well done. I think my only issue is I don't think some of the pigments were as bright as they should have been on some of the costuming for Talokan, just because you're talking about very deep reds and very like vibrant reds.
I gotta go get my.
And very like vibrant blues that I think should have been incorporated,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else was just really beautiful. And I think the headdresses were extremely gorgeous to see.
Yeah.
My only thing is I wish that there was more jaguar iconography, because jaguars or panthers
Mm-hmm.
are very big and very important to Mesoamerican mythologies. And we kind of get a little bit of that at the end when we see the
That tapestry, but like
we have the panther on one end and them on the other. And like, I would have liked to have seen jaguar iconography worked into more of the sets and into more of the clothing that was worn, because that is an extremely important thing to Mayan, Aztec, anybody coming from the Toltecs or the Olmecs. Like, jaguars, panthers are very, very important to the world and how they build their clothes. And so I think that was like the one thing I would have liked more of. But like, I think everything is just, it's just spot on and beautiful. Because I was a little worried, right? Because like, one of the things that was cool with Wakanda is like, it's not an actual culture. So she was able to pull from different tribes and different things to make it its own. And so I was like, okay, well, you can't do that with somebody coming directly from Mayans.
Right.
But how do you adapt it to being in the water and the resources they have in the water while also being cognizant of the culture? And I think that like she met that perfectly. Although I do want to know what you all thought about the Blue Angel suits, because I didn't really.
Oh, that was ugly.
Okay.
I was
like, why?
Y'all remember how like in Winter Soldier, when Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they said that Sam's new suit came from Wakanda, and I did not believe it. I believe it now. Because that suit was ugly on Sam. And the Blue Angel suit or Midnight Angel suit is also ugly. Because I'm just like trying to understand, like, sure, what is supposed to be the functionality of this? And like, how is it? This is ugly. There's no way around it.
You know what it reminded me of?
I wanted Riri to come in and say, like, let me redesign this.
Yeah. You know what it reminded me of? I don't know if you guys know, there's this old film, I think it was like from the early 60s, somewhere around, they called it Rocketeer. It looks just like the helmet.
Yes.
It does look like the helmet from the Rocketeer.
For the life of me, I don't understand. Like, the Dora cut their hair because they're fighting, and you don't want anything to happen to you because you can get pulled. But then they wear these
tassels,
suits
right?
that have these giant ass tassels flying behind. I'm like, why?
Why?
Why didn't Atuma just like grab that out of the air when she was like zipping around?
So many times he could have grabbed that thing and just like took the helmet off of her head and destroyed her, but he didn't.
The outfit is just hideous.
It's not good. Bad. It's not good. And I can't look at it.
It's not even like a nice blue either.
It's not. It's an ugly blue. And I'm just like, Shuri, you need to go to school for design. I think it's supposed to be
blue that way. It would blend in when it's underwater. But the tassels and just the design for the face, I just
needed to ask.
Really your design, Ruth?
Right. I'm like, what was the goal here? What was the aesthetic?
Can blame Ta-Nehisi Coates for that because it is in his run of Black Panther. It looks better on the page. That was something that when they adapted to live action, did not think about how it actually looks when you have people screen. Moving around in it. And it also just tactically doesn't make sense, like at all.
Yeah, no, this looks much better in the comics. I would have preferred this.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. My sister when we came out the cinema, she's like, is it just me or is that thing ugly? I'm like, no, it's ugly.
It's ugly. I questioned myself too, because I'm like, Wakanda don't make ugly things. What is this? Okay, so that's it for costumes and wardrobe. Going into our wrap up soon, but like last part, we'd be remiss to not talk about the music in the film. I have listened to the album like 4 times now, and I probably just listened to like No Woman, No Cry just so I can't cry. Which I found, the one thing I was disappointed on the album was that they didn't have the remixed version from the trailer, because I feel like that would go very hard. But like, there's a lot of great ones on here. I like La Vida. I love Coming Back to You, Limoncello. Like, there's just some really great ones on here. And like, I've added about 5 of them to my workout playlist. So I was just curious to y'all if y'all have listened to the album or like, was there any songs?
I understand why they have a lot of songs in Spanish. I wish they had just paid more to those Mayan rappers to do more songs in Quiche. So like Mayan dialect is 2 different, there are different dialects. It's really cool because it was Yucatan Mayan or Yucatec Mayan in what they spoke in the film, which is good because Quiche is what they speak in Guatemala. They're 2 different areas anyway. But they hired a Mayan group to do and that's the first song you hear as it's coming after you're coming out of the mid-credit scene. That was phenomenal because that's what I wanted. I kept waiting for that part because it's really powerful and it's extremely important when you think about how languages, especially indigenous languages, are being erased purposefully. And so if you can take an indigenous language and indigenous artists and uplift them in that way, do it. Like the Spanish songs on there are really good, like really good. Like it all has a theme, it all works. I just wish that there had been more choices, whether from that artist or from like folk artists out of there. And if they're not big time or anything, just find them in the communities and uplift them that way. That's my only issue. Like it is not bad. It is just a conscious choice I wish would have been given. Because the whole point is that Talocan hasn't been touched by the Spanish. So when you have Spanish songs coming in as the main component, you lose some of that.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. That's a lot of people probably don't see or understand that. So I'm glad you said that.
That's why I got mad at Maya and the 3. Because like it's supposed to be the Maya and they're speaking Spanish everywhere. I'm like, no. Why?
They shouldn't be speaking Maya. And like we've seen like that from what Wakanda proves is, and like we've been talking about from the beginning, like Mayan people are not gone. They're like Mayans, Yucatan Mayans around, so they could have had voice actors to play the characters. And but the thing with I haven't listened to the full album yet, but I will say probably like I agree with you, Kay. Like they could have had more indigenous artists on the album, and but I'm thinking maybe for the reason there's more Spanish than not has probably to do more with to make the album more mainstream,
which is really
but one thing I will say that does put that above the first Black Panther album is that it is the when you look at the song list, there's an equal number of songs in English and an equal number of songs in Spanish. Whereas in the first Black Panther album, that album kind of bothered me because we didn't really get as much West African music on that album as we should have gotten. And there were more male rappers on that album than there were female rappers and female artists. I'm like, where are there so many rap songs in this album when there could have been more West African and traditional African songs and more female performers on the album? So that's where I would say this album is better than that one. And then also we have music by Thames, like No Woman to Cry. Like I cried the first time I heard that song when they dropped it. Her cover of it is so beautiful.
Beautiful.
And then of course I cried when they dropped Lift Me Up by Rihanna. That song to me sounds like home. It sounds like Barbados, and I cry. It gets me
tears.
I feel, and I would have to watch it on mute, but I feel like the intensity and emotion that I felt in the last scene is from Rihanna. Rihanna is doing the work in that scene. Yeah, the music is what really makes that scene work.
Yeah,
I agree with you because the scene, if you take the music out, you're not really feeling it. But then that's the whole job of music like that, right? It's to help translate the emotion.
Well, yeah. I meant more of like I feel like that scene is driven home by Rihanna, not by LaNeysha.
By the song, the song is beautiful, and that song just makes me emotional, makes me miss Barbados, and it makes me miss the beach. I
love it so much. I'm probably gonna listen to it after we're done.
But yeah, that's it. This was our great 2 episodes. This is the first time we've done 2 episodes to cover one film. But as we said, and we haven't even touched everything. But this film is very dense and it's very long. So it stands to reason we will do 2 special episodes. But we had so much fun talking about this film. And
thank you, Kate, for coming back again, just to I do feel like it was worth doing a two-parter just because like there is just so much to talk about. And like it's important for people to understand, like, it's not that we're saying this is a worst film ever or that it's bad. It's just really that like, no, there's some deeper things that we should probably talk about and highlight for other people who may not just like it could go over their heads.
I think the fact that I can talk about this film as critically as I did, and I gave it a 9 in my review because it nails the emotion, it nails the pieces, it delivers on an indigenous culture that we have not like like there's so much it does right, but I think in order for us to keep pushing for better, we should call out when things go wrong. Right?
We should.
And I think that like I've really loved the space to get to do that with you guys. So thank you for having me on and letting me just like gush about the Noche probably more than was necessary. But
anytime.
He deserves all the gushing and listen, that man is hot.
Yes.
He is fine. But he's not only good looking, but he's such an amazing actor. Like I can't wax poetic enough about just how
talk about acting with your eyes. People talk about smizing.
All of his
this man just
we didn't really talk about it, but like he's such a good actor in that he has the intensity to scare you 1 second and then literally make you laugh the next second. Like that scene where he was like, "Oh, the pressure from Wonder Girl will crush you to your bones." But you know,
when he was being playful, I was like, you know what?
So let me be. Like, this man was threatening Ramonda, and I wanted him to kiss her. Like, not.
I want to be Sue Storm. I want to be Sue Storm. That's like, I just steal me. Take me away.
Take us, Namor. Take us. Come
take us, not her.
You don't need to fight no wars to get me. But I think like this, LaNeysha, whatever I say, I just love the casting choices that were made for this film. Like, I love what we got to learn about the characters and that's our job as critics. Like we can love something and still be able to critique it, still be able to point out the faults. And it make no mistake for anyone who's listening. We're not bashing Ryan Coogler. Not he had an extremely difficult task to put this film together because I don't know if a lot of people know, but like he had a whole completely different story already prepared. There was a whole other film. There's a whole other Black Panther film that will never be made because that film was written with the idea of Chadwick Boseman coming back. Yeah. So for him to have to craft this story to honor his friend and his work colleague and this person that he respected and loved
after a pandemic
and be able to craft this story, like he did an amazing job, and the cast and all the crew and everyone who worked on this film. Like we are showing our appreciation. To me as a critic, I look at being able to critique a film is showing love to the people because we're showing them that we care enough to think this deeply about the thing that they've created. True critics don't critique because we hate, we critique because we love and we want better.
I do want to say like one more note, like one of the, like just very, very quickly, what I really loved is that people are thirsting for the Noche, but I think a lot of that is happening because Ryan Coogler very consciously gave us that gaze to look on him and look at him and see him as gorgeous. Like a lot of those scenes where he's rising out from the water like a Bond girl, or like when they're doing a close-up of his side, like he's hot, like full, like face on, but like from the side, like that side profile.
We got our Baywatch moments where he was coming out the water, just pushing his hair back. I'm like, come on, Baywatch. Like
when he pushed that hair back, I was like,
yes, that's your
the throaty laugh. Like, okay.
And another thing about that, Kate, is people are acknowledging the beauty of him, not only as a dark-skinned man, but he's wearing the traditional nose and the earpieces. So there's people who would look at that and say, "Oh, this person is no longer attractive because they have this thing." I don't know what it's called, but like the nose piercing, and no, he's still gorgeous wearing the adornments of his indigenous people, you know. And I think that's another thing to acknowledge, that because especially from Western lens, especially like we're 3 women of color. But like, so we are accustomed to seeing these kind of things in our culture. But like, because a lot of the audience for this film are going to be people who are not of these cultures, who are not people of color, who are not Black, or who are not indigenous or brown skinned Mexican, they'll look at these things and, you know, they say, oh, you know, like primitive or whatever. But like for us, like we were like, no, we appreciate it because this isn't primitive for us. Like, you know, like in West African and Central African cultures, we see that in Wakanda, you know, how there's the water tribe, they have the mouth plate, you know, they have the stretched earlobe. So like, I love that Brian and the costume department and the makeup teams give us these aspects of our cultures to appreciate our people of color in their natural, quote unquote natural, because they still like film on a green screen, but you know what I mean, but like still like representing who we are as people with indigenous cultures and backgrounds. So that's just also another beautiful thing to acknowledge.
Exactly.
It is. Well, with that, let's let the people know where they can find us. I feel like, I don't know, forever do I don't think we need to do a part 3. We've been talking for almost 2 hours.
I think part 3 would be a thirsting thread talking about Tanoks and Winston's thighs.
Let's let this show come out and we can see where things
Alex's
land.
thighs, because that man is
There's this one scene where he picks up the sword to swing down, and you just see all of like the muscle of the
detail,
and I'm just like, oh, you are blue, but you are hot.
A hot blue man.
Hot blue man.
It's everything I want.
Oh, that's all we all want, Kate. Okay.
Where's my blue man?
The body diversity among them, because many people think that indigenous men are just short, or indigenous Mexicans and Mexicans in general are just short. There is a wide variety of the type of person you can find, and that was very good too. The body diversity of those from Talocan was amazing. Okay, now I'm done, I promise.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I love this. As always, y'all can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Nisha Plays. Check out my new cosplays coming soon. I might try to get a few more out before the end of the year. Kate, can you let the people know where they can find you if you want to be found?
Yeah, you can find me at OMMithrander on Twitter, where I am my most active and very obsessed with LaNeysha. I think I have a tweet about him like every day. And then you can find me on Instagram, same handle at OMMithrander, if you want to keep up with my anime and manga stuff.
And you can find me on Twitter for the time being, on Instagram at Carrie CNH Straub. That's CRIECNH12. You can find these episodes of So Here's What Happened, of course, on podcast streaming platforms such as Acast, Google Podcasts, and also I never remember to do this, but we also have a YouTube channel, so you can listen to the podcast versions on YouTube as well if that's what you prefer. You can find you can also go to the butwhythepodcast.net site and go and find other episodes of So Here's What Happened. Read Nisha's work there. Read our film reviews, show reviews, the blog posts for the podcast on there as well. You can find just go to my R3 page, that's authoroy.com/Carolyn Hines, and find links to the podcast there as well as to my YouTube channel, because that's something they integrated onto the site recently. So you can find RSS feed links to the podcast as well as my YouTube channel and all of my published writing and film coverage that I've done throughout the year. And so until the next episode of So Here's What Happened, everyone, stay safe. Bye.
Bye.